Oh, yeah. Super Bowl 58 just ended on Sunday, and the boys were out there doing it real big in Las Vegas last week. It's Donnie Rightside, it's Ben Stevens. But as always, we got to sort of look forward to the future. And look, it is a little ways away before we get to the NFL draft. And we've known for weeks now, Ben, who actually is going to be drafting number 1, obviously through number 10 in the NFL draft. But that doesn't stop the conversation here, and it's a great one. So we know the Bears are drafting 1, the Commanders 2, the Patriots 3, the Cardinals 4. You get the picture. But let's have some fun with this first. The Bears at number 1. Do they use that pick, Ben, or do they trade it away? Now, don't tell me who you think they should take. Let's just start there. Are they using it or losing it, as I like to say?
The Chicago Bears will use the number 1 overall pick, and they are going to take Caleb Williams. I know you didn't ask for that, and we'll get into the conversation. But the Chicago Bears will utilize the number 1 overall pick. It will not be traded away. They will probably move on from Justin Fields and select Caleb Williams. So we start there. The Chicago Bears will hold on to the number 1 overall pick and will draft first overall in 2024.
All right, so let's start there with that and who they're actually going to pick with that number 1 spot, because the FanDuel Sportsbook is basically saying, like, it looks like it's going to be an automatic here for that number 1 overall pick. So if the Bears do make that decision, they go with Williams at minus 1,200. Now, my question to you is, all right, if they're going to use that pick, draft a quarterback, what happens with Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears?
Yeah, I think his time has come to a close. A very interesting offseason for Chicago overall. Second straight offseason for Ryan Poles as the new general manager in the Windy City, where he has over $100 million worth of cap space, by far the most cap room in all of the NFL, and there's a ton of draft assets that the Bears have once again. It is building toward a future. Now, Donnie, you know me. I'm a huge Justin Fields defender, backer, and believer, as I have been since it was Justin Fields in the draft cycle way back in 2021. I still believe that Justin Fields is going to have a long and successful NFL career as a starting QB in this league. I still think Justin Fields can cut his teeth as a quarterback in the National Football League, to be one of the 15 best, to be one of the 10 best by a certain point in his career. I'm just not so sure that's in Chicago any longer. I think the situation has just soured for the Bears, but it is a really interesting spot for the Bears to decide. And part of the cap room conversation, Donnie, will be focusing on Justin Fields, if that were to be the case, in still his rookie contract. It's about to be year number 4 of Fields' NFL career. When you're picked in the first round, you have a 5-year NFL contract where that 5th year is the team option, where you need to decide if you are going to exercise that option before season number 4. So if the Bears do want to keep Justin Fields, they should exercise that 5th-year option, but that would tie them to Fields for at least another season beyond 2024. But you keep him at his rookie wages and not having to extend him if you don't pick up the 5th year to have another prove-it season here in 2024. That would make zero fiscal or realistic sense for Chicago. Now let's play out the other side of that conversation, Donnie. Minus 1,200 for Caleb Williams to be the first overall selection. As we always say, we need the caveat, we need the distinction. That doesn't mean the Bears have to draft Caleb Williams first, just that he goes number 1 overall in the 2024 NFL draft. But as I shared, I believe Chicago will be the one making that pick, and I believe Caleb Williams will be the Bears quarterback next season. Matt Eberflus was brought back by Chicago to be the head coach. Some changes, of course, to the offensive staff. Shane Waldron now in for Luke Getsy. There is a chance, though, Donnie, that you tie everything into Caleb Williams. You hit your wagon to Caleb Williams, and you thrust him into an impossible situation in Chicago, where if Matt Eberflus and the Bears do not have a winning record with a rookie quarterback, is he going to be the head coach the following season in 2025? Is he a lame duck sitting head coach for a rookie QB who will have to learn a new offensive scheme under a new staff and to his second year in Chicago, a situation that Justin Fields knows pretty well? That is the interesting decision that Chicago needs to make, because it would almost seem to say that you brought back Matt Eberflus. He is the head coach of the future, but you are changing that vision of the future by letting go of Justin Fields, moving on from the guy you drafted 11th overall in the 2021 NFL draft to go all in on Caleb Williams. Are you all in on Caleb Williams and a little bit uneasy on Matt Eberflus? Or is that the pairing? Eberflus, the head coach, Shane Waldron, the OC, Caleb Williams, the quarterback for the next 5, 7, 9 years in Chicago. It's the situation that I find so intriguing for the Bears in the Windy City this offseason.
Yeah, and you can only look forward here to what you saw just last year in Carolina. Frank Wright's an offensive mind here. He didn't work out well with the number 1 overall pick, and he got fired midway through that season. That's what you're staring at right now for Matt Eberflus. And also the question of bringing Eberflus back. If you were to say to yourself, you know what, we're going to bring him back. We're not going to use that draft pick. We're going to trade it away, stockpile defensive talent, keep Justin Fields. I would say that makes some sense. But to hitch your wagon to Matt Eberflus with a rookie quarterback, that it's so important that you get it right. And if you do, you could have 10 to 15 years of unbelievable quarterback play like you're watching now with so many cities in the AFC currently right now. The Joe Burrows of the world, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens. So if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I'm surprised they did this because, Ben, let's be real about this. Chicago is a big city. Right? So it's a great spot for a head coach to move in, but also what head coach wouldn't like this going, you know what? The expectations are low. I have a stockpile of money I can use to revamp this team, and I might be getting a stud quarterback for the next 15 years. I'm surprised they stuck with Eberflus. You should have had your phone buzzing and ringing from other agents going, hey, you know what? I know my coach is in college. I know my coach is here. He would love a chance to get in front of ownership and sell why he could be that next coach. So I'm very surprised that they're going to go Caleb Williams, which I think they will, and keep it with Matt Eberflus. I thought that would be a big-time offensive hire to sort of mesh well with Caleb Williams and send them off over the next 10 years with great football in Chicago, Ben.
It would have made sense, Donnie, just logistically and rationally. If you keep Eberflus, you keep Fields, you trade away number 1 overall, and you get all the draft capital to build a roster under a coaching staff that is familiar with one another. And the reason Eberflus kept his job is because the Bears won 5 of their final 8 games and looked better on the defensive side of the football, where Eberflus was calling the shots for a majority of 2023. So you would build upon the success that you had seen. Well, you're kind of taking that off the roadmap and revamping slightly with a new quarterback, where the expectation for Eberflus to keep his job in 2025 will probably be a winning record in the NFC and contending for at least a wild card spot in that conference. It doesn't really match up. Now, quickly on Caleb Williams. There is some conversation, of course, for the 2022 Heisman winning quarterback. With how the year ended at USC and some of what we saw on the football field, is Caleb Williams really that guy? I still think he is that guy. And as the odds makers agree, minus 1,200 to be that first overall pick, he is going to go number 1 overall, 1 of 1 in 2024. Now, compare that, Donnie, to number 2 overall, because I think this is going to be a very quarterback-heavy draft very early on. In fact, I think we go 1, 2, and 3. Caleb going 1 overall to Chicago. Washington, I believe, will take Drake Maye, who is the odds-on favorite in minus money, to be that 2nd overall pick. And I think Jayden Daniels goes 3rd overall. But J.J. McCarthy, who led Michigan to a national championship, despite some of the numbers in which McCarthy led Michigan to that national championship, throwing for 150 yards or less in the final 5 games for the Maize and Blue, to be a 2nd overall pick, a 3rd overall pick, maybe a top 15, top 10 selection in the 2024 NFL draft. He was 75-1 to go 2nd overall just yesterday. Now 33-1. Again, Drake Maye is the odds-on favorite, and I think it will go Williams, Maye, Daniels in that order in some form or fashion atop the 2024 NFL draft. But keep an eye on the numbers circulating J.J. McCarthy. And as we well know, Donnie, the numbers now for the 1st and 2nd and 3rd overall picks are going to look very different on Thursday, April 25th, the opening night of the 2024 NFL Draft.
No, they certainly will be. But also, you take a look at Drake Maye to the Washington Commanders, right, if we think that's going to happen. Let's keep in mind, Dan Quinn is the head coach there, a defensive guy, which I, again, disagree with. But this was one of those unforeseen circumstances where you can't tell me anything here. weeks and weeks and weeks in advance, we felt like there was a backdoor agreement that Ben Johnson was going to be the head coach of the Washington Commanders, which would have fit like a glove if you got a quarterback. And that's a great way to start that franchise and kickstart it to come back from the doldrums as we see in Washington over the past 20 to 25 years over Dan Snyder. It'll be interesting to see what quarterback position gets picked at number 2, which again, we think it's Maye, but I hasten this, man. We are going to see that draft process. And when Daniels gets out there to show off his arm and runs a 40-yard dash, there are going to be teams going like, I don't know why this guy isn't the number 1 overall pick. The draft process is so much fun from a hype standpoint. And Jayden Daniels, he might get the most hype even all the way through that draft process once he gets to workout day.
Completely agree. And the Washington Commanders, by the way, that have a new head coach and a new OC in Cliff Kingsbury, might they be interested in at least calling Chicago and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? We want to reunite Cliff and Caleb outside the nation's capital. Drake Maye, the new head coach for New England, by the way, in so many words said, we are going to draft the most important position. He didn't say quarterback, but we know what that means. How about some of the other quarterbacks that we knew very well throughout their college careers, like Bo Nix? Favored to go to the Denver Broncos at 3-1. Denver drafts 12th overall. How about the Seattle Seahawks? Ryan Grubb, the former offensive coordinator of the Washington Huskies. Now the Seahawks, the favorites to get Michael Penix Jr. at a plus 400 price. Plenty more around the NFL up next here on the Early Line.